In 1925, Miami was on the brink of transformation. From a sleepy coastal town to a booming metropolis, the skyline began to take shape, forever altering the city's identity. But what caused this rapid change? And how did it set the stage for the Miami we know today? Let's dive in. Before 1925, Miami was a far cry from the bustling city it would soon become. Nestled on the southeastern coast of Florida, it was little more than a quiet, isolated outpost, largely untouched by the forces of industrialization and urbanization that were sweeping the nation. The land was wild and untamed, lush swamps, dense mangroves, and pristine beaches stretched along the coastline. The area's tropical climate and natural beauty made it a draw for a handful of settlers, but it remained sparsely populated, with only a few hundred residents in the early 20th century. Miami's buildings were modest, often small wooden structures, more at home in a frontier town than a future metropolis. It was a place where time seemed to slow, a forgotten corner of America, still hidden from the world's eyes. But the seeds of change were already being planted, setting the stage for a transformation that would come faster than anyone could imagine. The early 20th century marked the beginning of a new chapter for Miami, driven by the railroads. In 1896, Henry Flagler's Florida East Coast Railway arrived, connecting the city to the broader network of commerce and tourism. Flagler, already known for his role in transforming Florida's East Coast, saw Miami's potential as a vacation destination. The railway made it easier for northern tourists and investors to reach Miami, bringing with them the promise of prosperity. By the 1910s, Miami was emerging as a seasonal retreat for wealthy Americans, with hotels and luxury homes sprouting up along the waterfront. Real estate developers began to take notice, and by the early 1920s, speculation was rampant. Investors saw the untapped potential of the region, and the city's first real estate boom began to take shape, fueled by both local and out-of-state capital. Miami, once a sleepy coastal town, was on the brink of explosive growth. By 1925, Miami was no longer a hidden paradise. It had become a magnet for real estate speculators and investors. The city's first true land boom exploded with astonishing speed, transforming it into a high-stakes battlefield for developers. Fueled by an influx of capital, a booming economy, and an insatiable demand for land, Miami became the epicenter of a frenzied real estate market. Land prices skyrocketed as advertisements promised endless sun and paradise living, luring buyers from across the country. Skyscrapers, hotels, and opulent homes began to rise along the waterfront, creating a skyline that seemed to materialize. Overnight, the rush was intoxicating. Even though much of the land was still undeveloped or prone to flooding, the promise of rapid growth seemed inevitable. By the summer of 1925, Miami's land sales had reached an all-time high, but behind the glittering facade, a fragile bubble was forming. One that would soon begin to crack. As Miami's real estate boom intensified, the city's skyline began to change in dramatic fashion. The early 1920s saw the introduction of ambitious architectural projects, breaking away from the traditional wooden homes and small buildings that had defined the city's landscape. Skyscrapers began to rise, drawing inspiration from both the grandiose European designs and the burgeoning Art Deco movement, which would come to define the city's future look. Buildings like the Miami Bank Building, completed in 1925, showcased sleek, modernist lines and towering facades that reached toward the sky. For the first time, Miami's skyline began to resemble those of other major American cities, signaling the city's rapid urbanization. The pace of construction was staggering, with more than 50 buildings rising in just a few years, pushing the boundaries of both engineering and design. This shift in architecture wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a bold statement of Miami's aspirations, transforming it into a metropolis on the rise. Today, the legacy of Miami's 1925 transformation lives on, not only through its physical structures, but through technology that brings its history back to life. AI reconstruction has become a vital tool in understanding and visualizing Miami's rapidly changing skyline from this era. Using advanced algorithms and vast historical data, AI has been able to digitally recreate buildings that no longer exist or were lost to time, such as the iconic facades of 1920s hotels or the grand skyscrapers that define the city's early skyline. This digital process allows historians and urban planners to study Miami's architectural evolution in unprecedented detail, offering a glimpse into the city's past that was previously lost to memory. Through AI, we can now trace the growth of Miami not only by its remaining buildings, but by a fully reconstructed version of its skyline, a testament to the city's resilience and its place in the story of American urbanization. The meteoric rise of Miami in the 1920s would not have been possible without the vision and ambition of a few key individuals. At the forefront was Carl Fisher, an automotive magnate and one of the most influential figures in early Miami development. Fisher, who had made his fortune building the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, turned his attention to Miami, convinced that the city's potential was limitless. He was instrumental in the development of Miami Beach, promoting it as the ideal destination for tourists seeking sun and luxury. Alongside Fisher was James Deering, the wealthy industrialist who helped shape the area's culture through the construction of his lavish estate, Vizcaya. Together, these men and their contemporaries, including real estate moguls and architects, laid the groundwork for Miami's urban transformation. Their investments, ideas, and tenacity turned a sleepy coastal town into a city with a skyline that echoed the ambitions of an entire generation, paving the way for future growth. As Miami's skyline grew taller, so did the risks. The 1925 boom brought with it an air of excess, a city flourishing under the glow of the Jazz Age, where wealth seemed endless and dreams of prosperity were shared by all. Developers and investors poured money into real estate, building grand hotels, luxury homes, and glitzy resorts, all designed to cater to the high society flocking to the city. But beneath the glamour, the foundations of the boom were precarious. Speculation ran rampant, with land deals often based on inflated values and the promise of future development that hadn't even begun. Many properties were sold before they were even developed, and much of the land was poorly suited for construction, prone to flooding or difficult to access. As the market overheated, cracks began to appear. The inevitable correction came in 1926, when the real estate bubble burst, leaving many investors with worthless land and unfinished projects. What had seemed like an endless golden age quickly turned into a sobering reality. The crash of 1926 was a sharp, painful jolt to Miami's once booming economy. With the collapse of the real estate market, the city faced widespread financial ruin. Skyscrapers that had just risen to the sky now stood as hollow monuments to a dream that had evaporated almost as quickly as it had materialized. The hurricane of 1926, which struck shortly after the crash, only added to the devastation, further stalling reconstruction efforts and sinking Miami into even deeper financial despair. Many developers and investors who had rushed to capitalize on the boom were left holding property that had lost its value overnight. The city's growth slowed to a crawl, and it would take years for Miami to recover. However, in the wake of this economic collapse, Miami learned valuable lessons. Builders shifted focus toward more sustainable growth, and the city began to invest in its infrastructure, ensuring that future development would be more grounded in reality than in speculation. Though scarred by the crash, Miami emerged from this period with a clearer vision of its future. Despite the crash and the challenges that followed, the legacy of the 1925 real estate boom is still felt in Miami today. The rapid growth and ambitious architecture of the era laid the foundation for the city's future development. The buildings that survived the boom became landmarks, and the city's skyline, though altered over time, still carries the echoes of its early 20th century vision. Miami's early embrace of Art Deco architecture, in particular, remains one of its most defining features, with entire neighborhoods like the Art Deco district in South Beach, preserving the aesthetic innovations of the 1920s. The boom of 1925 also helped establish Miami as a tourism and business hub, attracting people from all over the world. While the immediate aftermath was painful, the resilience shown by the city and its people paved the way for Miami to emerge as a global city in the decades that followed. The ambitions and mistakes of the 1920s shaped a city that would continue to evolve, a city that learned from its past but never stopped dreaming of its future.